Name's Scott Lang, but you can call me Ant, or Ant-Man, or Scott.
What is up, you guys? This is All Danny Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you a build breakdown for Ant-Man. So let's go ahead and look at his traits. His two main attributes are speed and intelligence. Increases his base damage by 4%. He gains 20% more damage to enemies that are not targeting him. His two main defensive stats are dodge and deflect. He automatically gains 3% to his dodge chance. Deflect rating multiplier and dodge rating multiplier are increased by 20%. Deflect rating and dodge rating base is increased by 600. He gains melee combatant, which gives him an 8% damage reduction. Ant control power, which is also known as ACP, is his primary resource. ACP constantly regenerates. So the abilities I'm using is Can't Catch Me on L2 circle, the Definite Particle on X, Bigfoot Sighting on L2X, Ant Decoy on triangle, For the Colony on square, Walla Ants on L2 square, Crazy Ants on L2 triangle, Drone Strike on circle. So the reason why I'm not using Shrinking Strike is because his ACP restores fairly quick anyways. Also, you have the Definite Particle, and the cooldown on it's only 8 seconds, and it'll restore your max ACP up to 100%, and it also does really nice damage as well. Can't Catch Me, definitely want to have a dodge. It doesn't matter who you are. I would highly recommend dodge on any and every character. Bigfoot Sighting is your signature. You're definitely going to want to have your signature for really I would say every character as well. It's probably just as important as your dodge, because this one is going to be your most damage dealing ability. So Ant Decoy, I'm using Ant Decoy because it takes the aggro off of you and it puts it on the decoy. It taunts the enemies, and it also does damage over time with the specific talent active. For the Colony, I'm using For the Colony because it does the most damage in your insect constructs. It does a heavy burst damage. It does cost a lot of ACP. It's one of the most expensive ACP users. But what it does is it summons a wave of ants, and it just basically pierces through all of them. So that's a really nice ability to have. Walla Ants, the reason why I'm using Walla Ants is because it summons a wall of ants, like it says, but it also stops enemy projectiles and blocks enemies from going through, and it also does damage over time with the specific talent. Now what you can do is, if you don't want to use Wall of Ants, you can always switch it out for Fistful of Ants, or you can switch it out for Little Car Throw. Little Car Throw is a really nice burst damage as well. It doesn't use up any ACP. Or you could use Molecular Melee, because what that does is it makes you invulnerable. That would be the only reason why I would use it. Other than that, I wouldn't. But yeah. And then the next one is Crazy Ants, which is also known as Army Ants. It does damage over time, and it is also the other most expensive ACP user. Pretty sure no, that one's not as much. But yeah, Ant Decoy and Crazy Ants are the most ACP users. It does nice damage over time, and it lasts for 15 seconds, and it summons up to 5 of them as well. So that's a really useful thing. Drone Strike, the reason why I use Drone Strike is because of the talent, the last talent you get for it. Well, right without the talent, it slows your enemies and it does damage over time, and it lasts for 6 seconds. With the talent lets it where the Drone Strike follows your enemies around. Not just one enemy, but it'll follow multiple enemies. It only summons one, so sometimes it'll just leave the enemy alone and then go to a different enemy and then do another. But if it's on a single target, for example, if you killed all of the enemies and then you have Mandarin left, it'll just follow Mandarin around, and it lasts for 6 seconds. So now for the talents, I use Fire Ant defenses. Walla Ants and Ant Decoy automatically applies Bullet Ant attack to any nearby enemies. Base damage is increased your summon powers damage is increased by 15%.
The bad guys aren't gonna
Next
fight
one I'm using
themselves,
is Crazy
although
Army.
they are
Army
well
Ants
enough,
transforms
so
into
who
Crazy Ants.
knows?
Crazy Ants summon twice as many ant swarms and arms them with Crazy Ants, who can conduct electricity and deliver minor shocks to enemies. And the electricity damage is it does a lot of damage. Jack Jumper Ants. Bullet Ant attack now causes the ants to jump to a nearby enemy when they are defeated, up to a maximum of 3 jumps. Bullet Ant attack damage is increased by 20%. So you don't have the actual ability in your slot, but your Walla Ants and your Ant Decoy would have bullet ant attacks on it by itself because of the fire ant defenses. So Art of the Swarm, the reason why I'm using Art of the Swarm is because it says powers that spend ACP have a 15% chance to refund all ACP that was spent on it. So if you use let's say you use your for the colony, the ant wave ability, and that 15% procs, it's basically like you didn't spend any of your ACP at all. So this is probably one of the better talents to get. If not this, then I would go with Fire Ant Constructs. Only reason why I would go with Fire Ant Constructs, or the only way I would go with it, is if I wasn't using Walla Ants and I was using Fistful of Ants. But other than that, I would stick with Art of the Swarm. The only reason why I'm not using Giant Sized is because, I mean, it does increase the Bigfoot sighting damage by 25%, and it increases the base damage you get for using Bigfoot sighting, but I mean, the damage is already big enough, and 25% for that isn't like a really, really big amount. I mean, it'll be quite noticeable, but like I said, you're better off using Art of the Swarm. And the last one would be Carpenter Ant Swarm. So Drone Strike gains the following effects. Now roams around seeking out enemies. Damage is increased by 150% and the cooldown is 10 seconds. Now I don't think there's an actual cooldown because you're able to keep spamming it, the Drone Strike, but the damage is increased by 150%. So for my synergies, I'm just going to let you know which ones I'm using, not which ones are good and which ones not good. I'm using Angela, Beast, Daredevil, Gambit, Hawkeye, Luke Cage, Magic, Rocket Raccoon, Squirrel Girl, and War Machine. The reason why I'm using the War Machine, Luke Cage, and Gambit is because, I mean, their attributes, even though they're not my main attributes, their attributes still help out a lot. Fighting increases your crit. Energy increases or reduces how much energy resource costs you use, and it also increases your resource cost pool, or your resource pool. And then durability increases your health and your defense as well. And then Squirrel Girl, I'm using her because of the extra boss damage. Rocky Raccoon, I'm using him for the summon power damage for your ants, as well as magic for the summon power, as well as her help on hit. It's always nice to have. And then Hawkeye, I'm using his for the crit damage. I would say his is pretty much a must-have to have. And yeah, for the infinity points, I put all of my points into the mind gem. I put 4 points into intelligence and 12 points into the crit damage, or the mental focus. Now if you don't have 25 points, or if you have less than 25 points, or you just don't want to put any points into intelligence or whatever, or speed, then you can go ahead and put it into mental focus for the extra crit damage, the strike through for the extra brutal damage, potency for the extra signature power damage. I mean, your signature is a 20-second cooldown, but I guess, yeah, you could still do that. You can put points into inner resilience for the health on hit, or against all odds for the health regen per second. Micro orbs or gravity well for the extra health, micro orbs for the extra defense, or temporal loophole for the extra movement speed and attack speed. Now for my gear, I do have cosmics on, but these are not like wow or OP or whatever. These are just like okay, like, yeah, they're just okay. As you can see, this one doesn't have any of the main attributes, which I was a little bummed about. but all of my other gear pieces do have a main attribute on it, and that's what you want to go for. As you can see, I have a blue belt on, but I have a cosmic belt in my inventory. I'm not using that because it doesn't have a main attribute or anything. This one gives me +4 intelligence, which right there is already a 12%. No, the 16%. That's a 16% base damage increase. This one also 16%. And then this one is a 12% base damage. This was 16, and this one's 12. So that right there is a bunch of base damage increase right there. Whether it's cosmic or not, I didn't really care if it was cosmic, because the cosmic didn't necessarily help. It's just the base damage and the crit hit. If I had higher crit hit as well, that would have definitely helped me out even more. Ziggurat of Cargill is what I'm using, and Advanced Latvarian Regalia for the intelligence and the summon power damage. And when you're attacked, you also summon a drone, as well as it gives you a crit hit. And then Hyde's Formula, when you use a medkit, you inject yourself with Hyde's Formula, granting 216 damage rating, 332.9 defense, 26.6 health regen, and increasing your size by 30 seconds. That doesn't really matter, the increasing your size, I don't think. I mean, at least I never noticed anything. Your health is increased, brutal damage and brutal strike is also increased. Relic I would highly recommend using is Relic of Gibberim, because you get an increase in your ACP, which, yeah, I would highly recommend increasing your ACP as much as you can, if you can. If you don't have enough Relics of Gibberim for it to be good enough, then I would highly recommend Subterranea then, because you want to have high defense for higher damage, damage reduction. You could use Xander or Asgard. Those two I didn't really care for on him, because you're using both melee and ranged. Then for my catalyst, I have a pretty bad catalyst. The only good thing about it was the XP bonus and the cosmic effects. But other than that, this was pretty okay. I mean, the health, the health is always nice. Energy is good to have, I guess, because of the resource cost reduction and the resource pool increase. My medallion, I'm using Lizard Medallion. When you use a melee power, gain 366 health per second for 10 seconds. So that right there helps out a bunch, especially because technically you still do have 2 melee abilities left. You have your signature and the definite particles. And then for my legendary item, I'm using Macron Crystal. Only reason I'm using this over most of the others is because you do get an increase in ACP. It's a well-rounded legendary item. You get the 200 ACP, 3000 health, 600 damage rating, and 1500 crit hit rating, and then 5% chance on hit to eliminate all enemies to the white hot room, which I guess is basically what Scarlet Witch basically does with her signatures and her Chaos Rift and whatnot. But yeah, it was either this or Shield of Perseus were my two main picks. The Savage Axe of Ares seemed like a good one, but I don't use movement abilities or movement powers either. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know. Savage Axe of Ares might have been a good choice, but I feel like Macron Crystal is just a better one. For my stats, I have 35,000 health and 35% damage reduction. Defense is at 0, 8% defense rating multiplier, and yeah. My offensive stats, 0% attack speed, 693 crit hit, 4011 crit damage, 1352 brutal strike, 4217 brutal damage, 140% base damage. I got that 140% base damage increase because of these pieces of my gear right here, as well as this, and yeah, and because of this. Oh, and my complete Relic of Gibberim and my 4 points in my infinity points. But anyways, now let's go ahead and show you what the abilities look like. So this is the wave ability. I forgot what it's for the colony. So my square ability, as you can see, it does that, and then the relic. I mean, not relic. The taunt ability. I don't know why I completely forgot what it's called. Ant Decoy. Yeah. So Ant Decoy does a nice AOE damage as well. And then you have the circle ability, the drone strike. As you can see, it's roaming around, hitting multiple enemies. And then I have the Walla Ants. It does damage over time as well because of the ability Bullet Ant Attack. And then you have the L2 Triangle, Crazy Ants. It starts off in a group and then it separates around, hitting multiple targets, also electrocuting them as well. And then you have the signature, you go big, stomp, and yeah. And then you have the particle ability, which does a nice AoE melee damage. So the way I was doing this on Cosmic Trials was I would use the taunt first, or the decoy, and then I would summon up the wall and just use everything else. You definitely want to make sure I would probably use the crazy ants first, either the crazy ants or the decoy, because the crazy ants, you definitely want to keep that up because it does nice damage over time, and the electric damage does really nice damage. But you want to have the decoy so that way you're not getting hit while you're summoning your crazy ants. And then just summon everything else. If you need ACP, use a particle, and then just summon everything again. Make sure you're always moving around too while you're doing your trials. Don't just stand in one spot and expect to not get hit, because you will still get hit. So yeah, that's basically it about Ant-Man's build. If you have any questions, concerns, or whatever, just go ahead and leave that down in the comment section. If this build helps you out at all, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, let me know. If you have any build suggestions for this build, let me know as well, because I just put this build up together. I was playing Ant-Man in through the whole story and just literally testing out every ability going through, so I didn't have to test it so I didn't have to spend a long time in the training room testing out every ability. But yeah, if you have any suggestions and whatnot, go ahead and let me know. If you have any other characters that you want to see with the build breakdown, then let me know as well, or Cosmic Trials, I guess. And yeah, this is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4. Leave a like, comment, and yeah, have a good day, good night, and peace.